This is Michael Popok, legal AF. A Jan 6 insurrectionist was just sentenced to the second highest amount of time in jail of any of the Jan 6 insurrectionists, 20 years. David Dempsey, the most violent of the insurrectionists, heeding the call of Donald Trump at the most violent battle scene. Yes, battle scene at the Capitol in the West Portico. That was the scene where this guy, David Dempsey, now convicted and now sentenced by Royce Lamberth, a Republican appointed judge who has seen it all, who has called out in prior proceedings MAGA elected officials like Marjorie Taylor Greene and others and Donald Trump by name, or at least by observation, and said that he is shocked that elected officials would try to minimize the carnage and the attack on the Capitol. You know who knows for a fact what happened on Jan 6, and it wasn't a walk in the park. It wasn't political prisoners. It wasn't a tour that got out of hand, but rather was a bloody carnage led by Donald Trump's minions. The trial judges of the D.C. courts, dozens of them, who have sentenced all of these people to some of the highest sentences possible. You know that David Dempsey's actions had to be bad because he wasn't a Proud Boy and he wasn't an Oath Keeper, and he got the second highest sentence of 20 years. The only person that beat him was Enrique Tarrio, who was the leader of the Proud Boys. He got 22 years. This guy, and I'm going to read to you what the Department of Justice, in asking for 21 years, the judge gave him 20 years, so there you go, proved that he did. First of all, he climbed up on human scaffolding on the backs of other people. He climbed up and then grabbed whatever he could, a broken crutch, a broken piece of furniture, bear spray, and attacked the police hand-to-hand combat, medieval style. He was convicted of at least 2 attacks on law enforcement, violent attacks on law enforcement. He attacked Detective Nguyen with pepper spray, not just like a spray, but a torrent of pepper spray, like a fire hose of pepper spray. Then he took a crutch and almost brained Sergeant Mastoni in the head, left him dazed and confused with a gash and stumbling around. But he did other things as well. Now, Donald Trump wants you to believe that nothing happened untoward on January 6th. These are political prisoners. These are people that we should admire. The Jan 6 choir and all. Forget it. I'm going to read to you the list of people who have already been convicted of between 10 and 22 years in prison for good reason. And now David Dempsey. David Dempsey, who was identified by online sleuthers who helped the Department of Justice track this guy down, and he was known by online sleuthers as Flag Gator Cop Hater because he wore a flag gator around his neck, over his eyes, up to his eyeballs, and obviously he was beating up cops. So he was Flag Gator Cop Hater, and they found him. And they delivered that with a ribbon to the Department of Justice, who was still trying to find other people involved. Could you believe we're this many years out from Jan 6 and they're still trying to track down diligently all these people? Another good reason to make sure we vote blue with a blue wave in November, to make sure the Department of Justice continues to do its job. David Dempsey, this was David Dempsey versus Judge Royce Lamberth, who was appointed by Ronald Reagan of all people. He's literally seen it all. And here's what we learned from the sentencing memorandas and the rest related to this particular occurrence. As we age, balancing our social life with next day responsibilities becomes trickier. That's why I'm thrilled to have discovered ZBiotics Pre-Alcohol, a game-changing product for responsible adults who enjoy a drink but have plans the next day. ZBiotics Pre-Alcohol is the world's first genetically engineered probiotic. Invented by PhD scientists, it's designed to address rough mornings after drinking. Here's the science. When you drink, alcohol creates a toxic byproduct in your gut. This byproduct, not dehydration, is what makes you feel rough the next day. Pre-alcohol ZBiotic produces an enzyme that breaks down this byproduct. Just make ZBiotics your first drink of the night. Enjoy responsibly and you're set for a better tomorrow. Since I started using pre-alcohol before social events, I've noticed a significant improvement. After a night out with friends, I wake up feeling refreshed and ready for my day. Whether I have an important business meeting or a family outing, I can approach my day with confidence. Vacations, weddings, birthdays, and reunions, there's so much going on. Get the most out of your summer plans by stocking up on ZBiotic pre-alcohol now. Go to zbiotics.com/legalaf to get 15% off your first order when you use legalaf at checkout. Pre-alcohol ZBiotics is backed with a 100% money-back guarantee. So if you're not satisfied for any reason, they'll refund your money. No questions asked. Remember to head to zbiotics.com/legalaf and use the code legalaf at checkout for 15% off. Thank you, ZBiotics, for sponsoring this episode and our good times. Let's start with Royce Lamberth. He, in a prior case, we reported it here on the MeidasTouch Network on Illegal AF, said that he was shocked by elected officials on the Republican side that were trying to downplay what happened on Jan 6th. Who could he have been referring to? Well, how about Representative Andrew Clyde of Georgia, who said the rioters behaved in an orderly fashion like tourists? What about Marjorie Taylor Greene, who called the Jan 6 inmates political prisoners? What about Elise Stefanik, who was in the running to be Donald Trump's vice president, who echoed Trump and called the Jan 6 criminals hostages, right? And what about the Republican National Committee, which passed a resolution which called the Jan 6 events legitimate political discourse? And what Judge Lamberth said at a prior sentencing, he said that the court is accustomed to defendants who refuse to accept that they did anything wrong. But in my 37 years on the bench, I can't recall a time when such meritless justifications of criminal activity have gone mainstream. He says, I've been dismayed. This is the judge, not at this sentencing, but I want you to understand what's going on in the mind of the judge when he's sentencing David Dempsey to the second highest sentence of any Jan 6 insurrectionist ever. He said, I've been dismayed to see distortions and outright falsehoods seep into the public consciousness. The court fears that such destructive, misguided rhetoric could presage a further danger to our country. And Lamberth knows. He was a former judge advocate general, a captain for the JAG Corps who served in Vietnam. He said, you cannot condone the shameless attempts to misrepresent what happened on Jan 6th. David Dempsey knows what happened on Jan 6th. Courtroom observers noticed that after he was sentenced to 20 years, he made some sort of symbol, I won't repeat, that demonstrates that he allies himself with white supremacists. He made that symbol. Other Jan 6 defendants, as they're led away, usually crying to their ultimate punishment and placement in the by the Bureau of Prisons, they usually yell out, Trump won, or some version of that. What did David Dempsey do? David Dempsey, not only, as I referred to you, not only did he scale other rioters and use anything he could get his hands on, at least 6 different weapons, to attack the police, but he stood in front of the gallows. Remember those gallows? He stood in front of them and made some incredible statements about it as he called for the assassination and hanging of elected officials and their staff. Again, the most violent Jan 6 defendant located at the most violent location in the West Portico is going to jail for a long time. Here's what Dempsey said. Cover your ears, put the children to bed. He said in front of the gallows, string all these effing worthless bastards up from the top of those, pointing to the gallows. These tree lines, the rafters, the rooftops, the statues, I don't care where they go, string them up high, and let everybody know this is what happens when you are a treasonous piece of S who doesn't belong in this effing country and has this effing country's worst objective at heart, right? He had already been involved in a 2019 incident where he doused demonstrators in California with bear spray while he wore a Make America Great Again hat, a MAGA hat. He was wearing a MAGA hat that day too. For those that think it was some sort of inside job, FBI responsible, Joe Biden, it was a false flag event. It's not. False flag event, Dempsey on the way out, made a white supremacist signal. Supporter of Trump to this day. If we allowed him to vote, he'd vote for Trump in November. And David Dempsey, thank God, with judges, not lawfare, not weaponization, judges who actually heard evidence, saw hundreds of thousands of hours of video provided by the Capitol cameras, and saw evidence presented by the Department of Justice. They know better. Here's the sentencing lineup, just so you can get a sense here, because some people think people haven't been brought to justice, and they have. Here's the sentencing. We'll start with, and I'll tell you the judge too. This is from 10 to 22 years. This is the worst sentences or the best sentences being handed out to Jan 6. Christopher Worrell, 10 years, Proud Boy, Judge Lamberth. Dominic Pezzola, 10 years, Proud Boy, Judge Kelly. Thomas Webster, 10 years, Judge Mehta. Alan Hostetter, 11 and a quarter years. He's a 3%er. Another white supremacist MAGA movement. By Judge Lamberth, again. Kelly Meggs, she got 12 years, Oathkeeper head, by Mehta. Daniel Rodriguez, 12 and a half years, by Judge Jackson. Peter Schwartz, 14 years, by Judge Mehta. Zachary Rell, 15 years, a Proud Boy leader, by Judge Kelly. Joe Biggs, Proud Boy leader, 17 years, Judge Kelly. Republican Trump nominee, by the way. Ethan Nordine, 18 years, Proud Boys, Judge Kelly. Stuart Rhodes, that's the guy that in cleaning a weapon blew out his own eye, went to Yale Law School. He's the eye patch wearing, now in jail, head of the Oath Keepers, 18 years by Judge Mehta. And now in this hall of infamy, this hall of shame, welcome David Nicholas Dempsey, 20 years, Judge Lamberth, only beaten by Enrique Tarrio, 22 years at Proud Boys, and Judge Kelly. Now, what does all that mean? All those people I just listed, and all the thousands more that were convicted or pled guilty, they could all be released from jail if Donald Trump got back in and did a blanket pardon or commutation of their sentences. Think about what I just said. As heinous as what I just described happened, the beating of police, almost to within an inch of their life, the attempt to hang and assassinate elected officials and their staff, the comments that were made with impunity, all of those people, David Dempsey, Tarrio, the rest, the Proud Boys, the Oath Keepers, the 3%ers, the people making white supremacist signals on their way out of their sentencing could all be released from jail if Donald Trump gets elected. If that doesn't send a chill down your spine and motivate you to get off the couch, I'm not really talking to my audience here right now. I'm talking in general. If that doesn't motivate you to get off the couch and go vote, no matter how long the line is, no matter how hard or how many hurdles you have to jump over to be registered, or to early vote, or to mail-in vote, or to absentee vote, whatever you have to do legitimately without fraud to vote, you need to vote. Because otherwise he's going to empty the jails of the Jan 6th most violent criminals and put them back on the street as political prisoners. How do I know it? He has said it. And if he hasn't said it, he's had his proxy say it. That's what's going to happen. How do you stop it? I never like to leave a hot take with sort of this apocalyptic, dystopian, American carnage view. I'm hopeful. I'm joyful. I am. I'm a happy warrior for democracy. To paraphrase our next vice president, Tim Walz, and Kamala Harris, there's a joy that we now have renewed to be progressives and Democrats. How do you stop it? Easy. If you're in a state that's going to go blue, go to a state that's red and help, right? And help. And make sure the states that are blue stay blue. Help with voter registration, even if you're not from that state. Be a poll watcher, even if you're not from that state. Make sure shenanigans don't happen at the polling place. Vote. Get your family to vote. Get your friends to vote. Get your kids at college to vote. Get your family members to vote, even the ones that are housebound or in assisted living facilities like my mother, or in nursing homes. Get them to vote the way they want to vote. And make sure these violent criminals against democracy that almost almost accidentally on purpose toppled our democracy, stay in jail for as long as possible. And they don't have a criminal in chief in Donald Trump open the jailhouse doors and let them out. This isn't Arkham. This isn't some lost episode of Batman. We're not letting them all out and release them into society. He's not supposed to be President Joker. I mean, he's a joker, but he's not President Joker. So we got to do. We got to learn the lessons of Mr. Dempsey and his jail sentence, and judges and patriots like Judge Lampert, and vote and do our part for democracy. We'll continue to follow it right here on the MeidasTouch Network and on Legal AF. Fired up on this hot take. Every Wednesday and Saturday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, follow us while we live record the MeidasTouch Legal AF at the intersection of law and politics. We curate the top 4 or 5 stories, and we bring it to you the way we know how. Uncensored, sometimes unhinged. Got to get angry. Got to get angry for democracy. It's a participatory democracy. It's a contact sport. I mean that metaphorically. And then you can find us if you like what we're doing on Legal AF. Here's the logo. Go find it on, just plug it into wherever you get your podcast from, your audio podcast from. And then I do hot takes like this about every hour. Leave me a thumbs up. Watch the whole hot take and leave a comment. It sends a message to the algorithmic gods that you like what we're doing here on the network that we're building together. We are people powered. We are Legal AF powered. We are Meidas Mighty powered. Help us get 30,000, 40,000 more people and get to 3 million free subscribers before Labor Day, at least before the election. So important. We're independent. No outside investors. We are your network. You are our network. We are in this together. So until my next hot take, until my next Legal AF, this is Michael Popok reporting. Heary, heary, Legal AF Law Breakdown is now in session. Go beyond the headlines and get a deep dive into the important legal concepts you need to know, and we discuss every day on Legal AF. Exclusive content you won't find anywhere else, all for the price of a couple of cups of coffee. Join us at patreon.com/legalaf. That's patreon.com/legalaf.